Hello, my lovely friends. It's Megan Barnhart. I'm coming at you live from Right with Megan. I forgot the name of my own page. And today I'm going to be talking about why in writing, tried and true is better than brand new. And you know it's true because it rhymes, or at least that's the wisdom I learned from Michael Scott of The Office. So join me for this conversation. Why been there, done that is often more effective than brand new in writing. If you are here watching live, please say hello. Hi, Wayne. Good to see you. Hi, Dave. And I'm going to get us shared in the Write with Megan Facebook group. I invite you to come join us, even if you think, oh, I'm not a writer. If you're working on writing for your business as a creative outlet in any capacity, come on over and join us. Come hang out with writers. That's the way to get more writing done, is to hang out with writers. You can ask questions. We do prompts. People have found their writing buddies, critique buddies, beta readers here. So it's a fun place. All right. How's everybody doing today? Good? All right. Hi, Carmen. Hi, Marina. I am doing great today, Marina. Thanks for asking. Okay. So I want to talk about why it's good to stick with things that have been done before. And of course, there's a big caveat here. I'm not talking about not being creative, but I want to talk about containers for our creativity. Okay, so this conversation actually came up. I was having coffee with a friend of mine recently, and we were talking about books and books that we've started reading and then stopped reading. And, kind of when the beginning of a book goes awry, and we were chatting about that. And we're both writers, so she writes as well. And so we had that perspective of readers and writers. And as we're sitting there talking, I just start going, well, obviously, a great opening chapter is just like these points, A, B, C, and D. And for those of you who have read Recipe for Outlining, or if you have my course Recipe for Revising Your Novel, I'm just pretty clear, cut and dry about that, right? There are certain elements that make for a great opening chapter, and you have to have them. Otherwise, you don't have a great opening chapter. So those things to me are top of mind because I think about reading, I think about writing, I think about the structure of writing a novel. I've spent time, putting together these books of how to outline and how to draft, and this course of how to revise. And my friend immediately was like, oh yeah, that's so clearly how you write a great opening chapter, just from the point of view of being a reader. But then we were chatting about how people kind of, they get scared of structure, or they don't like the structure and they deviate from this. So it was this interesting conversation about how, on the one hand, we all know what makes something good, right? Great opening chapter just has these certain elements, and that's why you keep reading. And if they're not there, that's why you stop reading. But we have this feeling when we sit down to write that we want something to be completely new. Or maybe we're just not even aware of the structure. That might be it too. Some of us are like, I'm learning about Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies right now, so they're top of mind. Some of us are rebels. There's a rebel tendency of like, I'm gonna stick it to the man. I'm gonna disregard all the rules. But maybe some of us are simply approaching writing without realizing that there's a structure. So we might not be rebels. We might just not have that tool or have that resource. So that's kind of where I want to start, is when you're approaching your writing, go ahead, just let's, identify ourselves. Are you somebody who's like, if this has been done before, I'm going to do it completely opposite. Like, I'm going to go off script. Who feels that way? And are there others of you watching who maybe go like, oh, wait, Megan, there's like a checklist for what to put in my opening chapter? Yes, there is. And it's in my course, Recipe for Revising Your Novel. And it's all there right for you. It literally in a checklist. So how many people might be going, oh, I didn't realize there was a structure for what I'm writing. So let me just hear from you guys. Hey, Holly. Oh, awesome. Marina is saying she's on a roll with timelines. Yeah, so like Marina, if you're writing it's 9 books, right? Like a 9-book series, and you want to match things up, timelines, totally for it. And that's a great example. A timeline is a tool that you might have used in other parts of your life. Maybe for a big work project or planning an event, you have used a timeline to make sure things match up. So you might just not have thought to bring it into your writing, but it's it's a tool and it works. So instead of having to create something new, instead of having to, or come at the task completely organically, give yourself that framework, that structure that works, and then put your creativity on top of it. All right, Holly says, I gave up on a writing group where people were discussing creating their own words. They didn't want to be confined by established ones. It ties in the concept of people rejecting following the rules, but somehow it destroys creativity. Thank you so much for sharing that, Holly. I think this is such a really important distinction to draw, that the containers don't take the place of creativity. The containers give, oh, how do I say this? Like, the container allows you to put your creativity into a format that, first of all, is easier for you to create, right? Like, the structure helps you go, I need, a part A, a part B, and a part C, right? So then you're more directed. But it also puts your creativity into a form that other people know how to absorb, consume, receive, appreciate, whatever verb you want there. And think about this in the media that you enjoy, like anything from a half-hour sitcom to like a space odyssey novel to a blog post or even a tweet. Like, there are certain expectations that we have as the people receiving your creativity. And if you as the creator are so far off from anything I've seen before, I won't know how to take that in. I'm sitting there trying to categorize what you're presenting me with. And if I don't have any experience that's even close that I can kind of connect it to, I'm lost. By the way, let me just say, and some of you are going to go like, oh, Megan, that's terrible. This is the feeling I have when I try to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know how to match it up with a category of movie, and I get completely lost. And I couldn't describe to you like the events that happen. I know there are key moments, and some really brilliant moments of filmmaking, but I could not describe to you what happens in that movie because it's so different. For me, it's so different from anything else I've experienced that I have like a dissonance. So feel free to like go, you're terrible for not liking that movie. But it's not even that I don't like it so much as I really don't get it. I have no idea what happens in that movie. Whew, I feel so relieved to just like outed myself. The charade is over. I don't get 2001: A Space Odyssey. So, and that's a personal thing. But yeah, we don't know how to take something in. Dave says, I usually try to stick with structure, but I purposely went nuts with the voices in my pen. Yeah, and Dave, you write, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you write a lot of satire. So actually, knowing the structure is really important because you're taking structure and expectations and then putting in these like surprises or hiccups, but that's still based on the structure, right? So even if you want to come at something from, even if you want to turn something on its head, you're still starting with that structure and what people's expectations are. Okay. Hey, Anne, good to see you. All right. Oh, hi, Carmen. Good to see you. So I've gone, not surprisingly, like way out. Speaking of space, I've gone way out into space. So let me reel myself back in. So we're talking about why completely reinventing the structure doesn't serve you in your creative writing. So what does this mean on a practical level for us as people writing stuff? Well, study the craft, basically, like learn what works and then decide what you want to do with it. So the same friend and I, we were talking about the zombie genre and all the different directions that's gone over the years. And I was telling her about a couple novellas I've read recently, both by D.S. Ritter, both really fabulous. One is co-authored with her, and I'm so sorry I don't have at hand the name of the other author, but it's Tanisha. I'll post links to these. And the other is When They Turn, The Miller Massacre. And they're both like in the zombie genre, but with these really cool twists. And I love them both. I'm not a huge zombie person, but I love them both because they were twists I hadn't seen before. So obviously D.S. Ritter is like aware, she's studying the zombie genre, she's hitting all of these key moments and points of like, I'm scared here, I know what, there's going to be some kind of confrontation there, but she's coming in and the creativity piece is about the larger context, right? Like, what if what if there was a zombie outbreak in Mad Men? It's, kind of like that's kind of how I would describe When They Turn. And so you get like all these other social overlays on top of essentially like a zombie plot. So there's so much room for creativity in what's otherwise a structure. So I just want to just throw that out there. Oh, I said I was going to get practical. I'm not practical. Oh yeah, thank you. Isn't this a cool owl mug? I love owls. Yes, I feel like this is a good owl. Hey Lori, good to see you. So let's bring it back to what you can do when you're writing to recapture structure. And you guys know I'm big on outlining. I personally prefer outlining before I start writing, but I also really advocate you can outline after you've written and see what form, what structure things fit into. What do you do in your writing to stick with a structure? What do you do in your writing so that you're not creating the content and the formula altogether? I'd like to hear from you guys, and I want to talk about this in whatever realm you're writing. Hey, Rita. Lori's saying themes and character arcs are huge. Awesome. So those are specific structures. My favorite way to think about a theme is like, if you are this way, you get this outcome, and then you can, what's it called? Like expand out to a universal principle, right? So like the nature of the world is X, Y, and Z based on the fact that if you do this, you get this outcome. And even that is a structure. I'm talking about a basically like fill in the blanks, Mad Libs type sentence structure where you're not inventing what it is to have a theme, but you get to fill in those particulars. Now, what that means is anybody reading your story will be able to gather the theme because we understand how presenting a theme works, but the theme you present is where your creativity comes in. Same thing for a character arc. We know what's supposed to happen in a character arc is you start here, you grow and change and are challenged in this way, you reach some moment of tough decision, or you get challenged and you have to, will you be able to rise to the challenge? And then you're somebody else at the end. And that's, guys, that's a formula. That is something tried and true and something you can tap into. And then you overlay your creativity with, what that person's journey is. Oh, I want to read Early Riser. Dave says, just started Jasper Ford's new novel, Early Riser. And if I'm correct, he is going to have a very unique twist on the zombie genre. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy Jasper Ford. I only started reading him, I think last year or so, but really enjoying him. Cool. I can't wait to dive into that. Yeah, and maybe there's some of you, like, tell me honestly, is there anybody hearing that going like, oh, another zombie thing or another fill in whatever genre thing? Does that drive you crazy? Does that make you think, oh, I don't want to write a book that's like something somebody else wrote? Because let's talk about that. And maybe you just don't like the zombie genre, and that's totally fine. But when you start to think about your writing as part of a tradition, a genre, a structure, do you feel like, does it give you the willies? Are you rejecting that, or are you embracing it? And let's take this into other realms of writing as well. I'm doing a lot of blogging lately and working with a lot of people who, like on blogging coaching and helping them write their blogs. And it's interesting because what they all crave and what they all really appreciate is the structure of it. Now, if you think back to being in school, the structured writing was probably for most of us our least favorite part. In school, everybody's like, well, I loved creative writing, but all those essays, they sucked and they stifled my creativity. And that experience is what some of us then bring to our writing as adults, where we're like, I don't want my creativity to be stifled. But if you flip that and think, I get to say what I want in a structure that somebody else will understand and be able to relate to, then it's actually freeing. The structure is freeing instead of stifling. So when I'm working with blogging clients and I tell them like, well, here, here's an outline, here's a recipe you can use, right? First you have like your intro and it does these things, and then you present your points, and then you kind of wrap it up, which by the way, is pretty similar to all those essays you had to write in school. But I'm going to do a whole separate video on that. But they're so freeing, because now instead of having to work at both creating the structure and filling in the content for it, you are just thinking about your creativity and your content. And then you get to do cool things. So Dave was talking about how he in his own writing likes to, kind of bend and break and twist the rules, and also this Jasper Ford book. But if you have that underlying structure, then you are going to start getting ideas, because you're going to bounce things off of that structure. It's almost like working collaboratively. Anybody ever write with somebody else? I was surprised at how much I love that, but I really, really love writing with somebody else, because you feed off of the other person's ideas. And you can do that with a structure as well. So you can go like, oh man, in a traditional romance, this would be the part where like the guy sweeps in and rescues her, but I'm going to put this twist on it, and he's going to come and try to rescue her, and then it'll be super awkward, or she's going to rescue him, or whatever it is. So you get to have that interplay with like a dialogue with the structure. Lori's got a twist on zombies. I think it would be cool if eating brains actually turned the zombies back into humans. Nice. Okay, so now perfect opening for me to tell you a bad zombie joke. Do you know what vegetarian zombies say? Grains. Okay. Sorry, I have more. I have many, many more of those. That's how I spend my free time. Anne says, I like to outline and even map out my characters so I stay on point so I don't end up in no man's land. Yeah, and I'm imagining that when you map out characters, you have like a structure or framework that you use again and again, right? You're probably not, as you're creating each new character, also creating new ways of creating a character. So, like, oh, okay, anytime I create a character, I want to know his, like age, where he was born, his family situation, his job, his magical powers, whatever it is, like you've got those list of questions, and you can create that as a framework. And here's another piece of the power of using what already exists. So I was talking about, if you're using a structure, you can kind of bounce ideas off of it, and it's like you have somewhere to begin. You're not starting with a blank screen. That's true not only for things like genre and structures for various types of writing, but it's also true for the writing process. So if you're willing to use structure, if you're willing to use things that have been used before, then you can go on a hunt. You're like, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to look up different ways of planning characters, and I'm going to start trying things out, see what works, and then make my own. Or like, yeah, Megan, I'll start using your blog post recipes, and then I'm going to tweak them and I'm going to make them my own. And like, then I'll internalize it and I'll have a way of writing that I know works for me. But you start based on a system or strategy that's already been created, so you don't have to do all of that work from scratch. Dave says, I'm a big believer that nothing is overdone. It all depends on the writing. You may just have to be extra brilliant to pull it off, like Ford. Yeah, we get the same stories again and again, but when they're done really well, we react. Writing the first series based on an existing myth can be restricting and a bit difficult. Ooh, Marina, I hear you on that. So how can you lighten things up? You get to pick and choose. What would make it feel more open and more expansive to hold on to? Is it trying to stick within a certain tone that's feeling frustrating and restrictive? Is it trying to stick within certain plot points? And this is a great place to ask yourself, what's essential about the kind of writing I'm doing? So what is essential about this genre of fiction I'm writing? Or what is essential about writing the type of memoir I want to write? Or what is essential about the kind of blog that I want to start for my business? What are the things that are deal breakers if I don't have them. Like, it's got to have this. And then what are the things that I would kind of like to have? And you can start looking at structure that way, so that it doesn't feel as restrictive. I hope that helps. For planning characters, Lori says, I find pics of what I think my main character looks like and make it my desktop. Ooh, nice. So you have that continual reference. Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad you love writing with your co-writer, Lori. Oh, okay, cool. So Anna's saying yes, and creating character cards. Yes, show us one of your character cards. Carmen's working on character cards for her series too. And yes, Anna's agreeing, writing with other people is great. You get to bounce ideas off of them. So think of the structure as yet another place you get to bounce ideas off of. All right, so that's what brought this up, is this conversation about, I'm going to do something completely new. Well, if you do something too completely new, you are going to lose some people. Now, you're not going to lose everybody. Maybe there are tons of people who love 2001: A Space Odyssey. So there you go. That also comes back to, like, what's your intention? What do you want to do with what you're writing? And if what you're writing, if the point of it is to, like, break people's brains and challenge them, it's like, okay, maybe you do want to go completely new. But for most of us, most of the time, we're writing because we want to share the ideas and a certain experience that somebody gets reading those ideas. So for example, again, blogging, I want to share the ideas, and I also want you to, like, hear how I think about things and connect with me in that way, and hopefully start a conversation about it. If you're writing, when I'm writing my nonfiction books, I want to, like, help people understand the writing process. And in those cases, like, I want my voice to come across, but mostly just so people don't feel bogged down. Like, I want to kind of keep it light so they feel like, okay, this is doable. Megan tells really bad jokes, so that means this book's not going to be too hard to get through. If you're writing fiction, you want people to have the experience of the story and probably to get certain emotions out of it. You want them to get the theme. So come back to your intention, and that will hopefully help you see really clearly that the structure is going to support you and it's going to help you. And if you're choosing to go completely off structure, completely off book, and reject everything, just know that you're going to lose some of us. Okay, Stanley Kubrick, this is a message for you. All right. Marina says it's okay. The challenge around writing about the myth, it's using which existing stories and which to forego, how to interpret their personalities, and creating fictional scenes around that. Yeah. So Marina, this is where your creativity and your being the author is really important, because absolutely it's possible to get distracted, bogged down, or overwhelmed by input. And this, again, going back to thinking of the structure as almost like a writing partner, if you get too many writers in the room and too many opinions, you get nothing, right? It's like, oh, we're going in so many different directions. So Marina, it's up to you. Again, I think the way I would probably do this is to make a list of, like, my must-haves. Like, why am I really excited to write this story? What are the things that for me are really essential? And then, like, what are the things that maybe I want to have? And then if it helps, write out a list of the stuff you don't care about. You're like, I'm going to dump these kind of details. Like, I don't need anything that is over here because I know what is essential. Yes, another favorite of mine, Christopher Moore. Dave says, Christopher Moore wrote a novel called Lamb about Jesus' best friend, Biff. He was able to take a subject that has been written many, many times and give it an original twist. Yeah, I really enjoy Christopher Moore. I think he's so talented. Dave, have you read Fool or The Serpent of Venice? I really recommend those. They're retellings of King Lear and The Merchant of Venice, respectively. Okay, guys, this is super random. I mean, I can kind of connect it to what I'm saying, because the friend I was having coffee with that I told you about that sparked this all also makes this really cool art. But I'm just super excited and I want to show this to you. Okay, so, oh, I'm so messed up because it's backwards. But this is my great state of California, and it's resin. But doesn't that look like the ocean? Isn't that the coolest thing ever? I'm going to put a link to Michelle's Facebook page because you should go check her out, because I just think this is, yeah, awesome. Anyway, so what links did I say I was going to share? I'm going to share D.S. Ritter's books. I'm going to share Michelle's page, Windows to Waves, and go check out my books if you want some structure for writing your novel, or go check out the revising course. I'll drop all those links. But main point, use the structure. The structure allows you to focus on the creativity of what you want to have happen in terms of your character arcs, in terms of your theme, in terms of your setting, in terms of using all of your 5 senses, without you having to go back and reinvent the wheel. All right, so that's my 2 cents. And let's keep the conversation going. How do you use structure? If you have favorite structures, like if you found a great resource about how to outline a novel or how to create characters or how to plan your character arc or your theme, please share in the comments of this video, and let's just give one another some great resources so that everybody can pick and choose and find the structure that works for her or him or them or yawns. I think that's what they say in Pittsburgh, Yoons, something like that. All right. I will catch you all next time. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I wish you happy writing.